The recent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has collapsed. The fragile peace, in place for just 42 days, unraveled as Hamas rejected a proposed extension. This breakdown has immediate and dire consequences. Israel, accusing Hamas of diverting aid to fund terrorism, has blocked all humanitarian supplies into Gaza. This move has drawn condemnation from the international community, further escalating tensions. The situation in Gaza is already precarious. The recent conflict, sparked by Hamas's attack on Israel in October 2023, resulted in widespread devastation and loss of life. The ceasefire, while bringing a temporary halt to the violence, did little to address the underlying issues. The recent breakdown threatens to plunge the region back into chaos. The aid blockade has severe consequences for the people of Gaza. With limited access to food, water, and medical supplies, the humanitarian crisis is worsening by the day. The international community has called for an immediate end to the blockade. They urge both sides to return to the negotiating table and find a peaceful resolution. The coming days will be crucial. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a swift resolution to the crisis. The lives of millions hang in the balance as the Israel-Hamas conflict enters a dangerous new chapter. The original ceasefire agreement, brokered by Egypt and Qatar, was intricately designed in 3 phases. Phase 1, successfully implemented, focused on immediate actions. It included the crucial release of hostages, increased aid flow into Gaza, and the withdrawal of Israeli troops from urban centers. This phase, while a positive step, only addressed the most urgent needs. Phase 2, where the agreement faltered, aimed for a more permanent solution. It included a complete end to hostilities, a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the release of all remaining hostages. This phase, fraught with complexities, required significant concessions from both sides. Hamas, seeking leverage, insisted on linking the release of hostages to progress on political demands. Phase 3, never reached, envisioned a future of recovery and rebuilding. It included the sensitive return of bodies, reconstruction efforts in Gaza, and long-term economic development plans. This phase, while seemingly distant, represented the ultimate goal of a lasting peace, albeit a fragile one. The phased approach, while well-intentioned, proved difficult to navigate. The lack of trust between the two sides, coupled with the sensitive nature of the issues, made progress painstakingly slow. The collapse of the ceasefire during the second phase underscores the deep-seated mistrust and the challenges of finding common ground. The United States, deeply involved in the peace process, proposed a 42-day extension to the first phase of the ceasefire. This extension, intended to bridge the gap and foster trust, aimed to provide more time for negotiations on the thornier issues. It included a provision for the immediate release of half of the remaining hostages, with the rest released upon reaching a permanent agreement. Hamas, however, rejected this proposal outright. They argued that Israel was not negotiating in good faith and was using the extension to buy time without addressing their core demands. Hamas insists on a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and a lifting of the blockade as preconditions for further talks. The rejection of the extension highlights the deep chasm that separates the two sides. Hamas views the continued Israeli presence in Gaza as an occupation and demands complete sovereignty. Israel, on the other hand, has security concerns. It fears that a complete withdrawal would allow Hamas to regroup and pose a greater threat. The impasse underscores the need for a fundamental shift in the dynamics of the conflict. Both sides need to move beyond their entrenched positions and show a willingness to compromise. Without a genuine commitment to peace, the cycle of violence will likely continue, with devastating consequences for all involved. The international community has expressed deep concern over the breakdown of the ceasefire and the ensuing humanitarian crisis. The United Nations, along with several Arab states, has condemned Israel's blockade of Gaza. They argue that it violates international law and exacerbates the suffering of innocent civilians. The United States, while supporting Israel's right to defend itself, has also expressed concern over the humanitarian situation. They have urged both sides to show restraint and return to the negotiating table. The European Union has called for an immediate end to the violence and a resumption of aid deliveries to Gaza. The fate of the hostages remains a major concern. Families of those held captive by Hamas have appealed for their immediate release. The international community has called on Hamas to release the hostages on humanitarian grounds, emphasizing that they should not be used as bargaining chips in the conflict. The situation in Gaza hangs precariously in the balance. The recent escalation of violence and the ongoing humanitarian crisis underscore the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. The international community must work together to pressure both sides to return to the negotiating table and find a lasting solution to this decades-long conflict.